But what are you learning when you're the best at something? Nothing. Get around people that are better than you. That's how you excel. Because if you're always the best in your circle or your sphere of influence, then how are you in a sphere of influence? Because the only thing you're influencing is the people that want to learn from you. What's going on, everybody? I'm your host, Chris Naugle, and welcome to the Money School Podcast, where we're going to talk about money, wealth, and how you can live like the wealthy using their exact same strategies. And I think that's a good starting point for today's topic. You know, I listen to a lot of recordings, a lot of YouTubes, a lot of even CDs, because back in the day, some of the best stuff was created, and a lot of that stuff exists on CDs, and a lot has been converted into videos that I find on YouTube and various podcasts. So I want to relay some of the things that I've learned on my journey, and I want to show you how I've gotten to where I'm at, but I also want to show you how I've gotten to where I'm at, which means I've got a lot further to go. Why is that? Because I'll never arrive. One of the biggest faults that I find in people, one of the biggest mistakes people make on their journey to becoming wealthy is they get to a certain level, whether it's a certain level of income, a certain level of stature, a certain level of wealth, whatever you want to call it. They think that they've arrived. Now think about this. If you were climbing to the top of a really high mountain, when you got to the top, you've arrived at the top. Where is the next place you must go? Back down. And if you ever study all the climbers that go to the top of Mount Everest, most of them, if they're going to die, most of them die on the way back down. See, I find that on your journey to becoming rich and wealthy, if you arrive, that's the scariest thing. So just don't allow yourself to arrive. Every time you hit a certain goal, set a new goal. Every time you get to a certain level, set another level. Don't ever arrive. Every day is the start of your new journey. Because if you arrive, the only way is back down. So let's talk about building wealth and how you do that. Well, it's the same way you do anything else. It all starts with a level of knowledge. Now, let's just say that for some reason you had to sit in a room with a whole bunch of experts, but these experts were experts in ice cream. I know it's kind of strange, but just think about this. If they're a room full of ice cream experts and you had to be there every single week, what do you think you would become? Well, in enough time, by almost osmosis, you would become somewhat of an expert in ice cream, because you'd be around the utmost experts talking about ice cream day in and day out. So therefore, it would be almost impossible for you to gain a level of knowledge about ice cream. So don't you think the same would be true about money? If you got yourself around what I like to call the campfire, if you got yourself around a bunch of people that just talked about money every single time you were around them. Now, even if you don't like talking about money, just go along with this. Do you think you would learn some things about money? If you got around multimillionaires and billionaires and you were able to just sit almost like a fly on the wall in the room every week, every month with these individuals, do you think that you would learn some things? It would be impossible for you not to learn some things. So let me take you back in time. I'll never forget the first time I saw a really nice sports car. It was a Porsche. And I remember I was a young boy. I don't remember specifically where it was, but I remember when I saw that car, I thought to myself, wow, that guy is rich. How many of you can relate? You see a Ferrari, you see a Lamborghini, and the first thing you think, oh, that person's rich. Or you drive through a nice neighborhood around you and you look at the big old mansions and you say, oh, those people are rich. But you know what? I always wanted to go a step further than just saying, oh, that person's rich. I always wanted to know, how did they get rich? What do those people know that I don't know? That guy driving that Porsche, what did he know to be able to afford a $150,000 Porsche or whatever it cost? That was the key. The want for the knowledge. That's what I had. And I've had it my whole life. When I see somebody that's successful at whatever it is, even my professional snowboarding career, before I was a professional, there was two guys, Blair and Shane. They were the first pros I ever met. And I met them at Kissing Bridge. And they were lapping the park with a filmer. This is way back in the 90s. And I remember thinking to myself, if I can just be around them, I'm going to learn. And I did. I hot lapped him with him. And finally, Blair came over and he said, hey, do you want to ride with us? And I started learning. But also my perception of the reality of the situation was I believed. I saw these two pros and instantly I said, I could do that. So I started riding. I started practicing. I put myself around riders that were better than me. If I was riding and I was with a group of people that I was the best rider, I would find a new group. And I know some of you, you hang out with a group of people that maybe you're the top at what you do within the group. And it feels good to be the top. But what are you learning when you're the best at something? Nothing. Get around people that are better than you. That's how you excel. Because if you're always the best in your circle or your sphere of influence, then how are you in a sphere of influence? Because the only thing you're influencing is the people that want to learn from you. I find myself always asking the question of, how do I become better? How do I become wealthier? And it's not out of greed, because wealth, people ask me all the time, when's enough, Chris? The answer is never. There's never enough. Why? Because when you remove the I out of it, when you remove yourself out of it, there's never enough. There's always people that need help. There's always charities to give money to. There's always people suffering who need a helping hand. There's always animals like this little buddy here who are out on the street that could use a little money to help them find a home or get medical care. Think about it. There is never enough until you become greedy. Then there is enough. But when you remove yourself, and you think of the problems that you could solve with more money, with more wealth, and that's all you focus on is solving other people's problems and giving, well, then the answer is never enough. But let's get back to it. That car that I saw, the first thing I thought, oh, that person's rich. But then the second thing I thought, what does that person know that I don't know? And that began the journey. I got into a lot of different things. I got into the snowboard, skateboard business. And how did I do that? I got around people that were in that business, people that were at a higher level. And when I reached their level, I found people that were even a higher level. When I started getting around all the other shop owners, when I had Fat Man board shops, I learned a lot of things, but then I had to get out of that comfort zone of being, in that sphere where I was maybe the top shop and I had the most knowledge. I would go out to New York City and I'd get around those business owners. And that was a different game. And I had to learn. I always put myself in situations where I was always upping the ante. Snowboarding, when I was riding with my friends, if I was the top rider, I always found somebody that was better. I'd travel to find somebody that was better. I always wanted to be the one that was looking up to somebody else saying, wow, I got to learn that. And that's how I excelled. And then I would take what I learned and I would practice and practice and practice over and over and over again until you had a level of mastery. They say it takes 10,000 hours to hit a level of mastery. And they talk about it with Bill Gates and they talk about it with all the greats, from athletes to the greats in business. They all came to a point where they had 10,000 hours. It was a level of mastery. Do you think that once they hit 10,000 hours, they just stopped? I easily have 10,000 hours of camera time, of doing this, of speaking time on stages. Do you think I'm content? Oh, I hit my 10,000 hours. I'm good. All right, I've arrived. No, I'm always getting around better people. I'm looking at the best speakers. I'm looking at the Hall of Fame speakers, and I'm saying, what can I learn from them? You're probably asking, well, what does all this have to do with me getting rich? Folks, it has everything to do with you getting rich, because number one, you can't ever arrive. Number two, you got to get around the right people. Look at who you hang out with day in and day out. Are they wealthier than you? Do they know things that you want to learn? If you're the smartest person in the group, find a new group. If you're the wealthiest person in your group, find a different group where you're the lowest, where everybody around you has more and wants more and is doing what you want to do. That's how you do it. I want you to think about wealth like precipitation, like rain. We all have seen rainstorms, right? The rain falls from the clouds. It hits the ground, creates puddles in some cases. But then that rain gets absorbed into the ground. It finds its ways to streams and brooks, and those streams and brooks find their way to rivers. Those rivers find their way to lakes, into oceans. And then what happens? The sun beats down on those bodies of water, and then that rain that water finds its way in vapors back up into the clouds, and the cycle continues. Think about that. So if you wanted to figure that piece out, what would you do? You could create a dam. You could basically create a mechanism that stops the water or disrupts the water. And that's how they created energy in the early days. You could find ways to disrupt water and you'd get more. So why with money is it any different? Money's always in a constant state of motion. Money doesn't just sit still. The only people who think money sits still is us, because that's what we've been taught, to take our money that we worked for, we traded hours for, put that money somewhere and just leave it sit. That'd be like fishing in a stagnant, smelly pond or marsh, and then you catch a fish and you're going to go home and eat that stinky, smelly, marshy fish. No, you want to go to the river where the water's moving fast and catch a fish out of there, and that's dinner. Money is no different. You want your money in motion always. And if you want to get wealth, then disrupt the flow of money somehow. Put yourself in that situation where you're just there. Get wet. If you want to disrupt water, get in the middle of the water. You got to get wet. So if you want wealth, if you want money, get in the middle of it. Find its flow and find a way to disrupt it. Your real estate business lives and dies by the network and the connections that you make. I mean, after all, your network, well, it's your net worth. That's what you always heard, right? If that's an area where you desire improvement, well, Private Money Club, it's for you. PMC saves you precious time and money by bringing the real estate world, well, right to you, right in the palm of your hand. So get in on the action like so many others have by going to privatemoneyclub.com and sign up. It's not hard. Solve a problem and money will flow your way. In business, the number one thing we all do to make money is solve a problem. The bigger the problem, the bigger the paycheck. But you got to disrupt it. You got to disrupt it in order to get it. Folks, sometimes when I talk to people, they say, oh, I already heard about that. Oh, I know about that. With the infinite banking concept, I get this all the time. Oh, I've heard about that. You've heard about that. So you don't want to learn anymore. What do you know about the infinite banking policy or concept? What do you know about it? And you know what? A lot of them say, oh, isn't that whole life thing? Wrong. You know who I hear that from? Financial advisors, CPAs, people that should be in the know that aren't. What is the infinite banking concept? I'll ask. And you know what they say? Whole life insurance. And I say, you're wrong. The infinite banking concept is nothing more than a process of taking back the banking functions in your life. It's literally a process of looking at where all your money goes by who are you writing checks to? And usually it's someone else's bank. And it's the process of taking back the money you're giving away. That's what the infinite banking concept is. It has nothing to do with a product, but they think that it's the whole life policy. Now, why do they think that? Well, because the whole life policy is attached to the infinite banking concept. Why? Because it's the most efficient vehicle to put money in and then take money out of and keep that money in motion, because it is the only vehicle on earth that allows you to earn uninterrupted compound interest on your money. It's the only place where you can save money and spend money without losing the compounding effect on your initial saved dollars. But I'm not here to teach you about that. I'm simply here to tell you that a lot of people's problem, hopefully not your problem, is that you think you know what just ain't so. I mean, Will Rogers said it best. He said the biggest problem in America isn't what people don't know. He said the biggest problem is not what people don't know. He went on to say that the problem is what people think that they know that just ain't so. Let me give you an example from my past. When I was a financial advisor, I started in the financial advisory industry, in the Wall Street world, some would call it, in 2003. And I retired and sold my practice in 2018. Now, that's a long time to be in an industry. Do you realize that not once in that time, not one time was I taught about the infinite banking concept? Not once. I was taught about a lot of things, how to sell products, how to, do stocks, bonds, how to build portfolios, the efficient frontiers. I was taught all sorts of nonsense on how to be the smart guy in the room. And I'll never forget the moment when everything came crashing down And this isn't the only time in my life that I've had everything come crashing down, but this would have been 2008 during the Great Recession. I was almost bankrupt. And I remember after that, I was watching my clients and helping my clients, and I had a couple wealthy clients that were in real estate. And these wealthy clients got wealthier during the pandemic. Now, come on, if during a crash, like a recession, much like the Great Recession and much like what we're probably about to go into, wouldn't you want to pay attention to the people that are actually getting ahead when everybody else is getting behind? Well, I took note of that. And I started to say, what do these individuals know that I don't? What do I need to learn from them that will help me never repeat what I'm going through now, which was being on the brink of bankruptcy? Remember back to that guy that I saw driving that Porsche? The first time I saw a sports car, I said, wow, that person's rich. What do they know that I need to learn? The same thing here. What do they know that I need to learn? How many times have you ever asked yourself that? Or do you just sit there and say, oh, they're lucky. Oh, they caught a lucky break. Oh, blah, blah, blah. You think you know what you don't know. I was guilty of this. As an advisor, clearly we had an ego because we thought we knew everything there was to know about the financial world. So when I saw these guys getting ahead, I knew something was different because they weren't doing what I was taught to do, because obviously they wouldn't be making more money. They'd be losing money in the stock market like I was and like a lot of my clients were. But these individuals were different. So I started learning what they did. And you know what they did? They were in real estate. And I started talking to one of them. He was a really great guy. He came into my snowboard shop because he bought his kids snowboard stuff where it was. And he was also a client of mine, but he did very little business with me. He bought some life insurance with me. That was it. Didn't invest any money, which I never understood. I knew he was wealthy, but I'm thinking, maybe he's got someone else, but he didn't. You see, he was in the real estate game. And he started telling me one day when he was in the shop all about what he did and how he took advantage of the recession and prices going down. It was a great time to buy, and how he was buying apartment buildings. And then those apartment buildings would appreciate, but he'd be getting paid on all of them because of the rents. I'm like, whoa. So what did I do? I got in the game. I started learning. I started applying what that little knowledge was. And I started getting around other real estate investors. I started learning. I started going to seminars. I actually paid to go through seminars. And from that, the rest of that, I got into real estate heavily. I made a lot of mistakes because I got to certain points of arrival where I thought I knew what I didn't know. And then all of a sudden it came crashing down again in 14. Each one of these are learning lessons. But each one of those failures is usually a component of my arrogance, my ego, because I thought I got somewhere. You want to know why you don't know what you need to know? Arrogance, your ego. You think you know what you don't know, just like me. One more step. I was in real estate. I was flipping houses at this point. I'd almost lost it, in 2008. I've almost lost it all again in 2014. And now I'm flipping houses, borrowing money from all these guys. There was this really wealthy real estate investor. He had a show on A&E, for crying out loud. He lent me money. So I met with him at the Cheesecake Factory in Utah. And we were just chatting. And I asked him, I said, Mike, how do you lend all this money? And another really wealthy guy that had lent money to me had mentioned one time the ultimate in real estate is being the bank. I'm like, what does that mean? I thought the ultimate was owning the real estate and flipping it and owning rentals. But then this other guy said the ultimate in real estate is being the bank. And then this Mike guy at this meeting says, well, I lend my money from my private banking system. That very moment, I swear I thought he had a bank. I'm like, why are we in Cheesecake Factory, Mike? Why aren't we at your bank where you would be lending money from? He proceeded to tell me he didn't have a bank. He had created a banking system. He had done what the wealthiest families in history have done, from the Morgans to the Stanleys, the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds. I mean, the wealthiest families were doing this. And he's just like, I'm just copying what they're doing. And he tells me all the things about it. Oh, it's got guaranteed interest. I'm like, guaranteed, like for how long? He's like, oh, for my entire life, contractually. I get paid dividends every single year, and both the interest and the dividends are tax-free. So I get to grow without any interruption from taxes. And I'm like, oh my God, what is this thing? And he tells me the money's protected against judgments and liens. And if he ever passes away, his family gets a bunch of money tax-free. And then he drops the bomb. And he tells me, I lend you money from my private banking system. I take loans from my bank, And he didn't tell me at this point what that bank was. And I give that money to you. But when I give it to you, you see the money never came out of my account. He said, Chris, that's the secret. My money's always working for me. My money's always earning compound interest, but it's never being interrupted. It's not being interrupted by taxes because it's tax-free environment. It's not being interrupted by withdrawals because when I take loans from the bank, the money that I give you and you pay me 12 to 15% on, that money wasn't my money. It was given to me from another account that didn't interrupt my compounding. I was fascinated. I'm like, holy crap, what is this magic thing? I'm 14 years into the advisory world and I'm like, I'd never heard about this. And then he tells me what it is. He says it's a specially designed whole life policy from a mutually owned company that pays dividends. And I'm like, bullshit. I'm an advisor. I've never seen a whole life do any of that stuff that you just said. Whole life is an overpriced life insurance policy that the only one that wins is the insurance company and the agent getting the commission. And by the way, I'm the agent. That's why I know this. You see, the problem wasn't what I didn't know. The problem was what I thought I knew. That just wasn't so. I thought I knew everything. My arrogance and my ego stopped me up to this point from learning what Mike knew because I thought I knew everything there was to know about whole life. I mean, I'd heard Dave Ramsey say how terrible of a place. I'm like, yeah, Dave, that's right. Buy term and then invest the money with me as the advisor. Right. That makes total sense. No, it doesn't. It doesn't make any sense at all. When you start looking at where the wealthy put their money, just do a chat GPT about how many wealthy individuals use whole life insurance and have throughout history. And you will find hundreds of names of the wealthiest families throughout history. And it begs you to then ask the question, what is it that I don't know? What is it that I need to learn and how do I learn this? Well, I'm sitting there in front of Mike who knew about this. So I said, Mike, I don't really understand this, but how can I learn this? Can you teach me? And he said, no, I learned from this guy, Brent. I said, well, Mike, give me Brent's number. Damn, man, come on. You're holding out on me. And he gives me Brent's number and the rest is history. But even though I've gotten to a point where I am one of the top in the infinite banking space, there's still so much more for me to learn. I'm constantly studying history. I'm constantly reading books. I'm constantly watching other people in my space that maybe, just maybe, know something that I don't know. And I'm always looking for ways to get better because I will never arrive. And I will never say enough is enough because there's always more to learn. There's always more money to make, and there's always more people that need money that you can give to. So when you enter the world of thinking like the wealthy, that's what you will do. And you will always, always, always understand that wealth is earned by creation, not conformity. You cannot get wealthy by conforming to someone's failed ideas, by conforming to somebody's failed reality, by conforming to someone in your life and to somebody that has not had the level of success that you want. You have got to create that level of success. You have got to create that level of wealth. You have got to create the life you want. Because if you just conform to other people's lives, hopefully they're doing what you want to be doing. But 9 out of 10 times, maybe even 10 out of 10, they're not. But yet that's who we take advice from. That's who we take, financial guidance from. There's an old statement that says, the funny thing about Wall Street is people roll up in a Bentley or a Rolls Royce to take advice from people that took the subway to work. No pun intended in that, but think about that. In that analogy, the person that has the Rolls Royce knows something about creating wealth because they've got enough to buy a $400,000 Rolls Royce or whatever they cost. So therefore, they've got a certain level of wealth, and they're going to go in and take advice from someone that literally doesn't even own a car and takes a subway to work every day. Sometimes the secret and the answer to all that you want lies right in front of you. Who are you surrounding yourself with? Who are you getting your advice from? What is it that you're seeking? And why is it that your arrogance and your ego are allowed to get in the way of you learning something that would change your life? Folks, the path to becoming rich and wealthy is right in front of your face. Disrupt the pattern and the flow of money by getting yourself around the people that know how to do that, by getting yourself around the people like I have, by taking yourself out of the status quo, by taking yourself out of the environment you're in where you're maybe the top of your game and putting yourself in an environment where you're the bottom of the barrel. But when you're at the bottom looking up, man, that mighty climb is a fun journey. I hope you all enjoyed this episode. If you did and you want to learn more, go to chrisnaugle.com. There's a 90-minute video that teaches you what I learned after I met Mike and learned what the infinite banking concept was. Watch that 90-minute video, book a call with my team, and we'll help you on your wealth creation journey. And we'll show you how to build wealth through your own debts and expenses, which is the easiest and safest way to become wealthy. It's not by taking additional risk. It's not by all those investments. The best way is to make your money work for you instead of work for somebody else. If you are even remotely interested in learning more, watch the 90-minute video at chrisnaugle.com. Until next time, thank you for joining me. Have a good day.